In March 2013, the Auditor General released his report on the Evergreen Line Rapid Transit Project. To read the full report, please visit our website at www.bcauditor.com. The following presentation provides a summary of the report. As the nonpartisan, independent auditor of the Legislative Assembly, the Auditor General audits the government reporting entity. This consists of ministries, crown corporations, and other government organizations, such as universities, colleges, school districts, health authorities, and similar organizations that are controlled by or accountable to the provincial government. The Office of the Auditor General serves the people of British Columbia and their elected representatives by conducting independent audits and advising on how well government is managing its responsibilities and resources. Under the Auditor General Act, the Auditor General conducts and reports on both financial audits and performance or value for money audits. The Act also allows the Auditor General to follow up on any recommendations made in reports. The resources available to government are never sufficient to meet all the demands for investments in infrastructure and improved services. As a result, government needs good information in order to make informed decisions, so it makes best use of these resources. In 2002, government published the Capital Asset Management Framework, or CAMF, to provide a guide to good capital management. The $1.4 billion Evergreen Rapid Transit Line is an 11-kilometer extension of the SkyTrain system and is now under construction in Metro Vancouver. It is a primary example of the kind of project CAMF was created to guide. Several government agencies played key roles in our audit. The Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure took over lead responsibility from TransLink in 2008 and jointly developed the 2008 business case recommending a SkyTrain extension. Partnerships BC provided detailed guidance and expertise on P3 procurement and planning. It reviewed the 2008 business case and assisted the ministry with preparing the 2010 business case, which focused on the choice of procurement. The Ministry of Finance is responsible for the developing, maintaining, and updating of CAMF, and for reviewing the information submitted to Treasury Board supporting key recommendations about the line's scope and procurement. You can see from this figure that the Evergreen line, in green, will connect Coquitlam, Port Moody, and the northeast area of Metro Vancouver with the Millennium Line and the existing SkyTrain system. Seen here are the planned stations that are now being constructed. The line will run from Douglas College Station through major centres at Coquitlam and Port Moody, then through a tunnel to Burquitlam, before seamlessly connecting with the rest of the SkyTrain system at the Lougheed Town Centre station. The route chosen is referred to as the northwestern option. The 2008 business case also considered a southeastern alignment along the Lougheed Highway corridor. Our purpose in this audit was to determine if agencies fully inform government's decisions regarding what to build, choosing between SkyTrain, light rail, and rapid bus, and the preferred route, choosing between a northwestern and southeastern alignment, as well as what type of contractual arrangement should be used, choosing between a traditional public sector procurement and a public-private partnership, which we refer to as a P3 procurement, while also deciding whether a P3 option going beyond the construction and financing of the project to cover operations and maintenance was viable. We concluded that the responsible agencies did not fully inform government's decision about what to build. There were significant gaps in the information provided to Treasury Board in 2010 in support of the recommended SkyTrain option. Ultimately, our audit did conclude that the selected SkyTrain option is likely to best meet government's objectives. It provides greater capacity at a similar cost, integrates seamlessly with the existing rapid transit system, and uses a technology that is well understood. However, we relied on information not available to Treasury Board to reach this conclusion. We also found that the selected P3 procurement best meets government's policy objectives, and this was clearly supported in the information provided to Treasury Board. Moving now to our more detailed findings under the project scope decision. The Capital Asset Management Framework is a good high-level guide, but the detailed tools and templates needed to fully apply this guidance have never been completed. These are gaps that need to be addressed so that all agencies have consistent, detailed, quality guidance. Agencies fell short of meeting CAMF's guidelines in 4 key areas. Firstly, they did not adequately explain the risks, costs, and benefits of the alternative technologies to SkyTrain, such as light rail or rapid bus. Secondly, they did not explain that the assumptions underpinning SkyTrain ridership assumed significant future funding requirements and regulatory initiatives would be undertaken by the province, such as building the Broadway and Surrey SkyTrain extensions by 2021, providing very frequent bus services to Evergreen stations, and assuming that owning and operating a motor vehicle would be much more expensive after 2021 than it is now. Thirdly, they also failed to fully describe wider transit system risks and dependencies, such as impacts on key pinch points on the Millennium and Expo lines, and fourthly, how agencies would define and measure performance of the system against the planned expectations. None of the agencies, the Ministry of Transportation, Partnerships BC, and the Ministry of Finance, adequately documented their reviews of material that was provided to Treasury Board for the purpose of decision making. The audit found that the decision to use a short-term P3 was consistent with government's policy objectives. The business case made a clear case for rejecting a longer-term P3 based on the efficiencies from having the public sector, as a subsidiary of TransLink, manage and maintain the Evergreen line as part of the network. The risk-adjusted cost difference between the P3 design-build-finance option and the public sector design-build option was very small. Therefore, the recommendation of a P3 design-build-finance arrangement instead of a publicly financed design-build contract is consistent with the province's capital standard, which directs agencies to use a P3 arrangement for large projects unless the public sector alternative is clearly superior. Even though the recommendation was logical and defensible, we found record-keeping weaknesses, and the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure and Partnerships British Columbia were unable to locate the analysis justifying the small difference in risk-weighted costs. This is the first P3 arrangement in BC to not include a long-term operating and maintenance component, and the procurement decision was simpler than if a long-term P3 arrangement had been made viable. In this case, the assumptions about the discount rates used and how the public sector option is financed become more critical in comparing risk-adjusted costs. Our recommendations are broken into three categories. Our three recommendations pertaining to guidelines, documentation, and oversight are that, firstly, the Ministry of Finance implement a project plan describing the scope, required resources, timelines, and deliverables for updating the capital asset management framework to provide comprehensive guidance for public sector agencies on the information required to underpin capital project planning and how this should be documented, and the type of oversight that should be applied to verify the information presented to government. Secondly, the Ministries of Finance and Transportation, as well as Partnerships British Columbia, document project reviews so that the scope of these reviews and the analysis underpinning decisions are clearly described in their written records. Thirdly, that these same agencies improve how they assess and report on whether strategic options assessments and business cases have followed CAMP guidelines. Two of our recommendations regarding performance measurement apply only to the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. They are that the Ministry, firstly, provide more detailed guidance on performance measurement so that business cases follow CAMP by including appropriate detail on performance indicators, targets, and how these will be measured, and, secondly, develop and apply a detailed framework for measuring, managing, and reporting on the performance of the Evergreen line. The framework should describe evaluation objectives and specific performance measures, methods for collecting reliable, meaningful information, how agencies will measure and manage performance and resource this work, and how the outcomes will be shared across government and the wider community. Our final two recommendations pertaining to the transit and ridership benefits estimates also apply only to the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. They are that the Ministry, firstly, provide more detailed guidance on its requirements for estimating ridership and the economic benefits of transit projects, and secondly, update its guidelines to make relevant comparisons with observed data central to justifying and explaining traffic and ridership forecasts. The audit findings point to potential future audits on the planning of long-term P3s, further work across sectors on the adequacy of the business cases informing government's major capital decisions, and examining how well agencies measure performance. That concludes our summary of this report. To read this report and our other publications, or for more information about our office, please visit our website at www.bcauditor.com. The Office of the Auditor General encourages your feedback on this report, as well as your suggestions for further audits. We look forward to hearing from you.